Good evening, everybody. I am Ben Heckman, Library Director, and whether you're online or in person, on behalf of our Board of Trustees and staff, I would like to welcome you to the Bexley Public Library and the final event for our 2024 Centennial Author Series. We are delighted to have you here this evening to share this special occasion. I want to do two quick things before I go back to what they handed me. I want to thank all the staff for pulling all this together tonight. A special thank to Paige and Doylene for our little reception beforehand. We got Zach on the ones and twos, and we got Whitney and Josh in the back. So big round of applause to everybody to help pulling this together. And since 1924, this library has served our community. And so just a few weeks ago, the mayor of this fair city, more than fair, wonderful city, gave us a proclamation. Unparalleled. That's right, the best. He gave us a proclamation to celebrate our birthday on September 30th, 4 short days from now. But he put a twist on it, because September 30th from this year, moving on into in perpetuity, it will be Library Day in Bexley, September 30th, every year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So it is in that spirit of fun that I welcome everybody tonight as we wrap up a full year of fascinating authors, gifted musicians, specialty cocktails, pizza, beer, ice cream, and lots of cake that we have had at our events this year. It has been an honor and a joy for all of us to come together along with our community partners, local businesses, civic organizations, and of course our wonderful patrons to celebrate our 100th birthday. For their tremendous sponsorship and support, I also want to thank Annie and Tim Bezabachenko, across the pond, Beth Crane and Richard McKee, Crane Group, Friends of the Bexley Public Library, Giuseppe's, Linda and Frank Cass, the Teagle Foundation, and of course, the Bexley Whitehall Rotary Foundation. And a big thank you to the many additional sponsors and supporters who have made this all possible, as well as our earlier author events. I encourage you to check out the full list of partners in the back. There's also some library swag on your way out that you can get. And we appreciate them for their support. And of course, as always, we're grateful for Gramercy Books, who's here tonight. Please visit them in the back for book purchases for the book signing that we'll be doing upstairs in the browsing room after tonight's event. And so with that, I am fortunate enough to introduce two incredibly talented, creative, inspiring local writers, authors, poets, teachers. They're all the things, and we are happy to have them here tonight. Saeed Jones is a Pushcart Prize-winning poet and writer whose first collection of poetry, Prelude to Bruise, was a 2014 finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award and a winner of the 2015 Penn Joyce Oyster Wheel Award for Poetry. His 2019 memoir, How We Fight for Our Lives, won the Kirkus Prize for Nonfiction. His most recent poetry collection, Alive at the End of the World, won the 2023 Ansfield Wolf Book Poetry Award for poetry, recognizing that books that have important contributions to our understanding of racism and our appreciation of the rich diversity of human cultures. Saeed has called Columbus home since 2019, although he is currently spending a lot of time in Boston as the 2024-25 Artist in Residence at the Media, Health, and Medicine program at Harvard Medical School. As if he wasn't busy enough, Saeed also co-hosts the popular weekly podcast Vibe Check, described as your favorite group chat come to life, with Sam Sanders and Zach Stafford. His next book, Home Out There, is a forthcoming memoir from Washington Square Press. Maggie Smith is a lifelong Columbus resident and award-winning New York Times bestselling author of 8 books of poetry and prose, including You Could Make This Place Beautiful, My Thoughts Have Wings, a picture book illustrated by Leanne Hatch, Good Bones, Goldenrod, and Keep Moving, Notes on Loss, Creativity, and Change. A 2011 recipient of the Creative Writing Fellowship from the National Endowment for the Arts, Smith has also received a Pushcart Prize and numerous grants and awards from the Academy of American Poets, the Sustainable Arts Foundation, the Ohio Arts Council, the Greater Columbus Arts Council, and the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts. Her next book, Dear Writer, Pep Talks and Practical Advice for the Creative Life, is due out on April 1st, 2025. Maggie has called Bexley home since 2010, and we're so lucky to have such a creative and bright spirit in our community. Please join me in giving a warm Bexley welcome to Maggie Smith and Saeed Jones.
Yes, we're mic'd.
We're mic'd.
We're on. It's happening. Thank you, Ben. I joked with Ben at the reception that I hardly recognized him not in costume. And those of you who attend the 4th of July parade here in Bexley know what I'm talking about.
It's like an eyes wide shut kind of thing? Or?
Yes.
Hello to everyone on the live stream.
Yes, it is indeed like an Yes.
Thank you for having us. It is such a joy to be back in the heartland. Hi. Hi.
I know, and I actually, your job tonight is to convince Saeed to come back to Columbus.
Oh, she's good. She's good. She's like, you're gonna make this place beautiful.
Not without you, my friend.
Damn it.
Not without you, my friend. We decided that we wanted to actually read some sections of our unpublished books, which seems a little wild.
It's pretty
frankly.
wild.
I haven't read any of this out loud yet.
I have only read this last night I read, my friend Isaac came to visit me in Cambridge and I read it in my living room. I was editing it 5 hours ago.
I love this. Okay, so I'm going to start. I'm going to read a little bit from Dear Writer, which comes out April Fool's Day, but it's not a joke. It's really happening. And then Saeed will read, and then we'll chat, and then you can ask questions if you have them. So my next book is the book that I've been sort of thinking about writing for the past 20 years. And it's a craft book. So if you are like me and when you graduated from high school, someone bought you Anne Lamott's Bird by Bird, if you are that person, you are my people. So I'm kind of calling this my Bird by Bird or my Big Magic. It's my book about creativity and writing, and so I've structured it in 10 sections. It's the most organized book I've ever written. I don't outline, so this was new. I've structured it in 10 sections, and each of the sections is an element of creativity I think is essential. Just my personal opinion. And then I've written a sort of pep talk to you, the reader, sort of centered on that, bless you, centered on that element of creativity. And then there are some craft essays and some writing prompts and some further reading pieces. So my hope is that it will be useful. So it's kind of odd to read from a craft book, but what I'm going to do is read 2 of the pep talks, the letters that I have addressed to you, the reader, on 2 elements of creativity. So the 10, if you're keeping track, are, according to me, attention, wonder, vision, surprise, play, vulnerability, restlessness, connection, tenacity, and hope. I'm going to be reading from play and connection tonight. Play. Dear writer, I love and have always loved the word shenanigans. It brings to mind mischief and silliness, boundary testing and mess making, experimentation, and good troublemaking. Creativity is artistic mischief. As writers and artists, our work is play. We come to the page, to the canvas, to the stage, to the studio with trickster energy and a sense of daring. We're working, but we're delighting in the work. When children play, it's not a means to an end. Playing is the point and its own reward. As writers, we play by testing new ideas, trying new techniques, and delighting in the process. We build creative momentum, that feeling, of gathering speed. Remember pumping your legs to swing high on a swing or flying down a slide? That feeling was thrilling, an adrenaline rush, and a good day of writing can feel that way too. If you're not enjoying yourself, you're doing it wrong. And why are you doing it at all? Let's let go, once and for all, of the idea of the tortured artist. Let's let go of the idea that creative people are all depressed, locked away in their own minds, creating from torment. It's a lie. Let's create a new model, the artist who creates with gusto, joy, and exuberance, the artist who plays, makes mistakes, changes their mind, tries something different. Flow, as some artists describe it, is a kind of enchantment, just you and your creative mischief for hours on end, if you can carve out the time. Writing days remind me of being a child again, playing outside with friends from sunup to sundown, hardly realizing I'd been gone so long until I heard my mother's voice calling me home. Even spending a whole year, day after day, writing about difficult experiences can be pleasurable because there's satisfaction, even delight, in giving them a form and a place to live outside of yourself. I wrote about the end of my marriage in Goldenrod, in Keep Moving, and in my memoir, You Could Make This Place Beautiful, but I'm not a masochist. If I'm writing about something painful, it's because I'm enjoying the creative process. Drafting is play, and revision is play too. Workshop is a place for trying and testing, not a place to fix broken things. You don't bring your poems, stories, and essays to workshop to be fixed by others. It's not that kind of workshop where things are built and repaired. It's more like a laboratory. You bring your writing in order to understand it better, to get others' impressions, to hear their questions, to gather ideas for what to try next. What elements and in what combinations might yield exciting results? Experimenting with genre, form, voice, perspective, tone, these are all ways we can bring the element of play to our creative process. My previous 5 books have been in 5 different genres. Actually, and my next 2 books will be in 2 totally different genres. Indeed, because why not? Elizabeth Gilbert was spot on when she wrote, "A creative life is an amplified life. It's a bigger life, a happier life, an expanded life, and a hell of a lot more interesting life." I'll tell you an embarrassing story my mother loves to tell. My mom is ill, so she's on the live stream. Hi, Mom. When I was in preschool, a warm, informal home preschool, the teacher called my mother to kindly, gently tell her something I had done. According to Mrs. Lee, the neighbor who ran the little preschool in her basement, this is so mortifying, seriously. I know I wrote it. This is real. This is a window into my soul that I really don't open that often. I had told a couple of the other children that their drawings weren't good enough. I told them, this is worse, it gets worse, y'all. I told them that their mothers wouldn't like their drawings. Okay, I need a drink.
No, this is good because I think people are beginning to be like, they're friends, and I'm like, you're starting to see why. I like this.
I was like, Cecilia, girl, no. Right? They could do better, be neater, stay in the lines. I was a 4-year-old perfectionist, inflicting myself on other 4-year-olds. How mortifying. It's a funny family story we laugh about now, but it's taken many years of unlearning perfectionism, of allowing myself to be messy, to forget about the lines, to fail and try again. That's what creativity requires of us. And as a reward, we get that bigger, happier, more expansive life. Mess around, try new things, leap, then leap again. Who knows? Maybe you'll stick the landing. Now go play. So, that is the pep talk for play, followed by craft essays to sort of help you learn how to do it a little bit better. And then I'm going to read the pep talk for connection, which is a later chapter in the book. Connection. Dear writer, I got ordained on the internet for the same reason I write poems. To marry two people is an act of hope, optimism, and connection. To write is an act of hope, optimism, and connection. I have always liked the part in weddings when the congregation is called upon to speak. The officiant asks a series of questions. Will you support this couple in their marriage? Will you listen and nurture them in times of hardship? Will you celebrate with them in times of joy?
Leave him, girl.
Speak now, Saeed, or forever hold your peace.
Bitch, do you want to make this place beautiful or not? Leave him. I was like, how many children are in here? Okay, let's go.
Hi, Mom. My mom was like, I love him. Saeed and my mom and Tina Turner share the same birthday. Sag season is coming.
Know us.
Okay. Will you celebrate with them in times of joy? And all of the people who love this couple and wish them well, all the people who wish them well, answer as if with one voice, we will, we will, we will. I do love that part. I'm still a sucker for that part.
That's very beautiful.
I don't care.
We will fuck you up if you disrespect our friend. She's got a 7-nation army of people who... I'm sorry, we'll stop. Y'all read the book.
I love you. Creativity, like marriage, dissolves boundaries. As if there's a veil of mist, of cloud between the writer and the reader, I can reach through it to you. You can reach through it to me. Good writing works from a simple premise. Your experience is not yours alone, but in some sense a metaphor for everyone's. When you read something I wrote, we're together. Even though we're not sitting next to each other, we're spending that time together. Dear writer, this is a kind of marriage. Neither of us is alone. Writing is both solitary and collaborative. I may be alone when I'm doing it, but I don't feel alone. I'm bouncing ideas off what exactly? My creativity? When I write, it's like I'm having a conversation with my own mind on the page, so it feels friendly, warm, engaging. Sometimes we argue, my creative mind and I, about where a piece should begin or end, or what words should be cut or added. No wonder I'm comfortable spending so many hours in what must appear to be solitude. I have good company, my creativity. Do you know that feeling of being in cahoots with something that feels bigger than you, and yet it is in you? Perhaps it is you. There's hardly anything better. You might, like me, lose track of time, forget to eat, forget to shower, forget the dog needs another walk. It really is like being engrossed in a long catch-up session with an old dear friend, because in a way, That's what it is. Sorry, I'm late, caught in a brainstorm. There's no creating and no living a fulfilling creative life without connection. Making metaphors is about connection. You're building bridges. Assembling collections of poems and essays is about connection. You're seeing the threads that stitch different pieces together. Storytelling is about connection. Research is about connection. Inspiration too. We may create in solitude, writing, drawing, composing, but ultimately we want to share with other people, and we hope it will mean something to them. We hope our work will touch them or teach them or make them laugh or transform their perspective. Our work is constantly in conversation with the work of others, with the work we've done before, with the world we live in. Everything touches. None of us writes alone, and none of us succeeds alone. Everything good that has happened in my life has happened thanks to other people, some of whom are in this room. Their goodness and generosity, their teachings and feedback, their inspiration and care. My poem, Good Bones, ends with this sentence. You could make this place beautiful. Together we could, we can, we will, we will, we will, we will. Thank you.
Hello again. I love you.
I love you.
I love you.
I know.
Okay, let me get my rant out of the way. And because I'm really angry. I moved to Cambridge for this opportunity. The sound you made when he said Harvard was... Is someone recording that? Can I make that my ringtone? I was like, those white people are shook. Injected into my veins. It was an incredible opportunity. I'm startled. You know, first generation college student. I went to Louisville High School, home of the Fighting Farmers. You know, I got accepted to NYU and then couldn't afford to go. And I ended up going to a state college, you know what I mean? So it's, your who is every single moment I'm walking across that campus, I'm waiting for them to snatch my ID away. But also I left and arrived, and within a couple of weeks, we had the presidential debate. Are you registered to vote? Talk to your friends, your family members. Ohio, you can go to my Instagram account. I'm doing videos about this. Ohio, 3 state Supreme Court seats are up. That is out of 7. You can absolutely change a lot of public policy. I'll just say that. But I arrived, and then there was the presidential debate. I was already anxious. I was covering it for my podcast, Vibe Check. It was like, oh my God, she's about to eat this man alive, and did. And then the word Springfield, Ohio left his mouth. And however much fun I was having, it immediately dissipated. And I just want to say, moving to Ohio saved my life in 2019. If I'm not here, I swear I am always here. And I love you. And I know what you have is worth protecting. And I will do everything I can to honor and protect you. And I ask that you protect each other, especially those of you who are most vulnerable, okay? Okay. Maggie and my friend Marcus know what I'm about to read. So what's funny is, speaking of Tina Turner, that was the easy part. I'm going to read an excerpt from my work in progress, Home Out There. It is a memoir that uses cultural criticism. I write about my queer ancestors because research is connection, it is gratitude, to examine how particularly Black queer people have to leave home to arrive home. Home can be a place, it can be a feeling, it can be a community, it can be art, it can be a moment. And so, it's a journey, and you find it and lose it from one moment to the next, right? I will just say this piece, I really love it. I'm very excited about it. You're gonna get a hoot because Cambridge is really weird. Really weird. But I will say, just fair warning, it starts light and then descends. Nothing in between. Cambridge, Massachusetts, September 6th, 2024. 2 weeks into my life here, I email a famous writer I know, but don't know, and admit that I'm still getting my sea legs. A jackhammer on Massachusetts Avenue, they call it Mass Ave, laughs at me. We've been going back and forth all day, this jackhammer and I. It pauses long enough for me to write like half a sentence, then starts laughing again. Clearly, my home can't be home today. I change from my bathrobe into clothes that won't embarrass me on the street, put my laptop into my bag, and head out into the sea. Without many friends here, I'm always texting friends elsewhere or looking up things on my phone. I'm worried that I misused sea legs in my email. Maybe I meant land legs. Merriam-Webster assures me I'm fine and offhandedly whispers that the first mention of sea legs appeared in 1712. Halfway between my apartment and campus, I'm thinking about Jesus, walking on water, and about how getting your sea legs is really about learning to walk where people aren't meant to stride. When I have to slow down, a couple of yards ahead of me, a wild turkey is bullying a tree in front of a church. The church has a sign begging people not to feed the turkeys. The bird mocks God. I text my friends Ellen and Tanya, I can't explain what it feels like to be 5 minutes away from your bedroom and encounter a bird whose beak is the same height as your dick. It does something to a person. Since most of us are first introduced to turkeys via Thanksgiving and the little hand paintings our teachers have us do in kindergarten, you might live under the illusion that turkeys are ridiculous and harmless, when in fact, they are ridiculous and terrifying. I get out my phone and record a video, making sure to give wide berth to the bird that clearly has a rich relationship with its ancestors. The week I moved into my apartment, I read an article about turkeys here in Cambridge attacking children on their way to school. Oh, there's videos. A man was once chased onto the hood of his car. In another article, a city councilor said a bird, quote, confronted him. After a meeting, I'm looking at the mayor. After a meeting, you better act right. Quote, it was like the turkey was waiting for me, he said. Quote, they're clearly strategizing. If someone told me this as a random fact, I would not believe them, my friend Ellen texts back. Absolutely fucking not, says Tanya. Be served with mashed potatoes or be in the woods. Nothing in between. Turning onto Quincy Street, I noticed that unlike all the other times I've been on campus these last 2 weeks, there are security guards checking people's IDs at the gates. I remember a colleague mentioning that there's going to be a protest against genocide today. Even with my noise-canceling headphones on, I feel it. The vibration of many people gathered, voices raised and ricocheting off of nearby buildings. The sea can change its mind in a minute. My life just a few blocks away is a shoreline out of sight. I wobble, then decide to slip inside the quiet of the Carpenter Center. If I'm going to join a protest, I need to gather myself first. I don't realize I'm sweating until I feel the gallery's coolness. I actually tried to press the soles of my feet down through my shoes onto the concrete floor underneath. We didn't have sea legs until 1712. Why the hell does the year 1712 flicker in my mind like a memory that isn't mine? I pull out my phone again and type 1712, then try to think, of like a second term to help narrow my search. Librarians, you know me. I realize that I rarely think about the sea for long without thinking about the slave trade. I type slavery in alongside the year, and what I read leads me to a nearby bench. On April 6th, 1712, the year sea legs apparently first appeared, 23 African-born enslaved people set an outhouse on fire in the village of New York. The fire they set was a signal to other slaves, most of whom had recently endured horrific voyages across the Atlantic Ocean. It was a call to revolt. They armed themselves with axes, knives, and guns. They were revolutionaries in a bloody fight for independence in a colony that was still decades away from its own bloody fight for independence. 9 white people were killed that night. When the revolutionaries were captured in a swamp that's now known as Canal Street, 6 of them committed suicide rather than wait for the trial they knew would have nothing to do with justice. Eventually, 40 or so enslaved people were put on trial for the riot. Some who were involved, I will just say as an aside, some who were sent there by their owners to clean up and they were accused of actually being revolutionaries. 18 were acquitted, a handful of people were pardoned, the rest were executed. And here, the sea pulls me under. Most of the enslaved people convicted for the riot were hanged. One of them, one woman, Abigail, was hung. A second woman, Sarah, escaped a similar fate by pleading the belly. She remained in jail under City Hall until she gave birth, and then she slipped out of the cracks of history. Maybe she was later killed, or maybe Sarah slipped into the crowds and watched as one man, Quaco, was tied to a giant wooden wheel, then clubbed by an executioner until all of his joints were broken, making a lethal curve of his body. One man, Robin, was put in a metal cage in the middle of town that was then raised into the air. And that's where he stayed until he finally died days later from exposure and dehydration. Finally, 4 people were burned alive. A fire, to answer the fire that had started the riot. When I walk back outside, I'm not the person I was before the sea knew my name. I hear the roar of students gathered in the yard, though I can't see them yet. Oh, right, the protest. Shit. I'm even less steady than before. I hear a helicopter I can't see and my body tenses up. I'm not wearing the right kind of shoes for running from the police. One night in early June 2020, the week before the protest started, I was in my apartment in the short north in Columbus, curled up in the dark on my couch, trying to forget the smell of tear gas, when my living room was suddenly brighter than daylight. The whole room was fluorescent and unbearable. It took me a moment for my mind to conceive that the light was coming through my windows. You see, a police helicopter was shining its searchlight directly into my 5th floor apartment. Just as I registered that I was looking at a helicopter, and a helicopter was looking at me, the unbearable light drifted away, scanning other apartments, and then disappeared. All the police left behind was that awful, awful sound. You never just hear a helicopter, do you? Your whole body absorbs the sound of its blades slicing air. I opened a window and stuck my head out, and this is one of the examples where I talk about Columbus and community. If other neighbors on the floors above and below me hadn't been leaning out of their windows, looking at each other in total shock, I probably would have burst into tears just then. The violation of that light was surreal as it was profound. Even as the sound of the helicopter faded away, I felt as if I was drenched with suspicion. hunted down in the swamp of my predetermined guilt. 3 decades and 8 years into this life, in this body, in this country, I made the mistake of thinking I was an expert on the various ways this country assails Black people. Nothing could have prepared me for the brief but intense violence of a searchlight's probe in the middle of an exhausted evening. I had made the mistake of assuming that seeing a Black congresswoman in her 70s, just a few yards away from me, get pepper sprayed in the face that morning would be the most haunting scene of my week. But American ingenuity is relentless. All of this is to say, more than 4 years later, the sound of a helicopter actually hurts. It thorns and boulders my body. Walking toward the gate, the sound of the helicopter I can't see is put like a rock between my shoulder blades. I almost want to go back home, even though I know damn well home can't protect me from America. I show the guard my Harvard ID and walk toward the roar, eager to add my voice to the din and bracing myself for the blowback. I hear that awful sound again and make myself look up. Best to just get it over with. It's not a police helicopter monitoring protesters. It's not a helicopter at all, but a small plane with a banner behind it. I Google Comp Lampoon, half expecting it to be some snide, taunting joke mocking the protesters or worse. And that's when I realized just how far away I am from anything akin to the land I was born to walk on. It's an advertisement for the school's famous humor magazine, the Harvard Lampoon. If I'd had my sea legs, I'd have known that already. Somewhere here in Cambridge would probably laugh at me if I nervously asked them what Comp Lampoon implied. Also, since when can a student publication afford to rent a damn airplane for the afternoon? Harvard is wild. My sense of bewilderment blossoms even more when I finally make my way to the huge, undulating crowd of students in the middle of the yard. That's like their campus green. It's not a protest at all. Different student groups of all kinds have tables set up, music blasting, as they invite one another to form community, to join their clubs and organizations. It looks like a scene out of a movie about college. I guess I should feel happy for these young people. I want to feel happy for them. But I just feel alone. I hear that damn plane again and try to relax my shoulders, but can't. In the unbearable blue depths called America, you are either drowning or waiting for the wave that will finally end you. There's nothing in between. Thank you. Thank you so much. We've already cried like 3 times.
Friend, we've cried multiple times today. I don't know how to
We're
do
drinking
this
water
with
because we're
you.
like dehydrated.
I don't know how to do this with you. That was beautiful. I can't
Thank
wait
you.
for this book.
Thank you for hearing the piece.
I would also just like to say, I know it's called Home Out There, but like it could be called just like Come Back Here.
I can't remember it off. I wish I had my phone with me. I can't remember, but the epigraph that I've decided for the book is June Jordan, and it's all about, it's this really, and it's her poem like notes toward home. And she's basically like, it's like 3 or 4 lines. I'll find it and I'll post it on social media. Obviously, I'll text you. But it's like, home is that place you leave just so people can ask you, where are you from? It's a loop, and so much of, and you see it in, we can talk, structure and stuff, but the sense of flow and history and I've been thinking, this is very much oriented, though, that essay isn't explicitly about queerness. I think the philosophy, frankly, that I'm trying to develop, like a philosophy of home, is from queer theory. When you're trying to come out, what are you trying to do? You're actually trying to enter your identity. You're actually trying to home yourself, right? The reason that when we're closeted, and it can be there's all kinds of iterations, is that you don't feel at home in your body, in your family, in your community. You're trying to get in the place you're in, you know? And so I think I'm really interested in that. And so that the way the essay is funny and then terrifying, and it's deeper, but we're learning, we're in Cambridge now, like that just feels like our lives now, I think.
It does. And of course, here we are in a library, and so much of the work you're doing now, I think, is linked.
And I mean, we're, in addition to friends, we love to hang out at Harvest. We do. Across the street.
We do.
And so I've kind of really gotten to know Bexley through you, and you have a vibrant relationship with Bexley. I've fallen in love with Bexley through you. I have. You know,
I'm like, Saeed, come.
I'm like, I'm on my way, sis. I'm in the lift.
Come here.
I'm not walking today. I mean, we've walked past the school and we've seen Rhett who just scored a goal within 1 minute of his soccer game that I'm missing.
Congrats, Rhett.
Auntie Saeed is so proud. But
I know.
we've walked, from Harvest to your house, and
Isaac's been here. We've walked all over.
My best friend that we have like 3 tattoos, and watch him on the playground and violent and everything. Yeah, I mean, so we want to talk about libraries a bit because
we do.
I call they're churches of literature. Doesn't it feel hallowed, right? And they, it's often first responders. They're really important, for people on the margins in our communities. They help us find our family histories, but also community. Look at us.
This was the place I missed most. I think when lockdown happened, I wrote a piece when I was still writing parenting pieces for the Washington Post. I wrote a piece about this library because when we couldn't go anywhere, I didn't miss Giant Eagle. No one missed.
They do, but you know what? Giant Eagle does have a brand of seltzer I miss. But go on.
I'm giving like the Scrunch Kermit face, like the. I didn't. There was actually. I missed live music. Like there were some things I really missed. I missed being able to like hang out with you and be in not. Across the yard, bundled up. But this was the place I missed most. I mean, this was the place I brought my kids for story time and parachute time, and this is the place where we would come weekly and get movies and board games and yes, lots of books. And I still am walking here on a weekly basis, putting my little stuff on reserve and going and grabbing it and squirreling it away with my little headphones. It's like one of those, it's a community center.
Yes,
it's not just a place where we get things, right? And I run into...
And it's not transactional.
It's not transactional at all, right? And I work at home alone, so I'm by myself most of the day. Yeah. And a lot of times when I do see people, it's, running around and showing up at places like this when you're checking out your book and seeing people that, oh, what are you reading right now? Yep. What are you liking? Mm-hmm. Oh, have you made anything from that cookbook? Oh, do you? I love that stuff. Mm-hmm. So, and it's, a place my kids love too. So it always feels homey to be here. Yeah. And I know I've heard about your library adventures at Harvard.
Well, I was about to, there's a library scene in How We Fight for Our Lives, but that's a conversation for another day.
There is indeed, but it's not really for the live stream.
Had to be there. It's actually really cool because I'm now quite literally just in the heart of academia. It doesn't get much more. No. Harvard's older than America, by the way. So that's part of what's really interesting as I'm interrogating our country's relationship to white supremacy and how that impacts all of this. It's like, shit, I was talking to my Aunt Janet, she's so wise, and she was like, it's America's bank. And I'm not just talking about money, Saeed.
No, it's, yeah.
Those are the women in my family. But, I realized so we also wanted to talk about like things we wanted to do differently from our last books of prose. Yeah. And so my memoir, How We Fight for Our Lives, is a pretty traditional, coming of age, coming into self memoir. I'm very proud of that book, but it's a pretty direct personal narrative. You're with young Saeed, from 12 into his mid-20s, and there are glimpses out. You can feel how America and the world are,
pressing
around.
In.
Yeah, it's a crucible that's getting hotter and hotter as the book goes on. But with this, something I wanted to do differently, both is structure. So, and frankly, inspired by you, it's vignettes. That's actually like a relatively long piece for the book. It moves back and forth through time. There are pieces that are like me as a little boy in 1994 in Memphis, Tennessee, in my grandma's living room watching Bewitched. Didn't realize Bewitched felt like home because it's a closet narrative. It's a husband telling his wife not to use her magic. You see me in Berlin, you see me in Argentina, but also Cambridge and everything. And so
there's got to be some Mexico City in
there's
there.
a lot of Mexico City, but I was like, that's not enough. Like, if I'm trying to develop a philosophy leaning solely on personal narrative, it does become narcissistic, and you start having to project in a way that I don't want to. So I realized that I would tap into my ancestors because research is connection. So libraries have been really important because 3 Black queer poet ancestors lead me home over the course of the book. Langston Hughes, Audre Lorde, and Polly Murray, excuse me, who, if you don't know Polly Murray eventually became genderqueer, first Black woman to become an Episcopal priest. I call them they, them pronouns. They have their own feast day. Also was a poet and a lawyer, and Thurgood Marshall said some of his most important legal decisions were influenced by the work she did ahead of him.
Oh, wow.
She refused to give up her seat on a bus before Rosa Parks. One person, you know? So, and so like Polly Murray's papers, the archives are in the library at Spelman University, HBCU. Langston Hughes, Yale University. Polly Murray, Harvard. You know, I've spent time in the Schomburg library, which is incredible. That's kind of like, if you want to know about the Harlem Renaissance, I'm going there. I'm like reading about, man, Langston Hughes was so hot. He was so hot, and Wallace Thurman was really into him, and he was kind of like, I don't know. And he was like, I'm going to Paris. Okay, this is like the 1920s. The reason I want to say this is like, these people become human.
Yeah.
They're no longer like symbols. They become human via the research. They have a little like, and like, you know, like Wallace Thurman's like, he's writing letters. They're getting hot, you know, hot and heavy. Langston goes to Paris because he's just like, literally, this is too much. There are no planes. Wallace Thurman gets on a boat. A boat. Do you know how much you have to like a man to get on a boat?
I've never felt that way about anyone.
I can make this joke. You can't, so I'll just say it. I just read a book about Black people's especially fraught relationship to get fucking boats. He got on a boat, unannounced, shows up on Langston Hughes' door in Paris like, I'm here. And Langston was so confused and like that Langston pretended to lose his passport just so that he could like dip. That's what I'm reading in the archives.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah.
By any means necessary.
It's so fun. So I say that to say, like, that's what I'm doing in the archives. You know, I think libraries, you know, unfortunately have, and it's political.
Right.
Because there are forces that don't want us to have a rich, humorous, fun relationship with libraries, so they try to make the archives sound boring and stodgy. They try to make the library sound like a place surely you wouldn't be welcome there. And so it's been so fun. I've been having a hoot. These archives are crazy. Yeah, anyway.
I love this. And I love that you're working in vignettes.
Can you talk about your decision to write vignettes in You Can Make This Place Beautiful and how that, because also, I mean, these are not vignettes, but it's right, to me, it feels very queer. It feels very informed by our media landscape. You know, It's like you read a ProPublica article and then you get a text from a friend and then I'm looking at a cute guy on Instagram.
It's
and
pastiche.
Then someone's dog on TikTok. It's all of these. It feels like you're responding to that.
Yeah,
Is that
it's
fair?
sort of everything all at once.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I think, and I don't know if this is part of your process too, but at least for me, working on that memoir, my goal was to find the most psychologically true form. And so as a poet, I like writing short, right? Like I'm real comfortable with economy of language. And actually I was telling my daughter recently, I'm like, yeah, I worked on an essay for 3 days and it ended up shorter than when I started. And you'd think the longer you write something, the longer it gets. And actually all I'm doing is like, that's not necessary. That's not, rein it in, boil it down. And so that's part of it. Like I really like compression and concision.
And it's someone was was Monique was saying, you know, like reading. Oh, hi,
Oh,
hi,
yeah,
honey.
yeah.
I like Monique. But she was saying reading it's like we know Maggie's work, right? I'm also one of her fans, so you know, it's this sense of like you read a lot. You know, there's like some of the vignettes are like 2 sentences, and you're like, damn, I read a whole John Grisham novel last week. You know, she just did more. You know, but really, you know, or like a paragraph, and and Monique was like, a loop. You were like, I would read it, be like, and then have to go back to it, and you know, and I was like, that's because it might have taken 3 weeks to get to those 2 sentences.
Yeah, you can pack a lot into a small space. So I think that was the goal, but also just writing about things that are difficult or painful or fraught or unknown, it almost feels like a lie to present it in a coherent, cohesive, completely full way.
Right.
Because that's not how you're processing it as an individual human being. And so if you are processing something in flashes, or if you're processing something in sort of waves, or as a kind of recursive, ruminating spiral, how do you find the shape and form, you know, sort of on the page to make the reader, sorry, not sorry, also have that kind of psychological experience while they're writing it or reading it. And so that was really the impetus, was like, how can I make you feel what I was feeling, not just hear secondhand, like a game of telephone, what happened.
Yeah. Oh God, there's so many thoughts. One, on the way here, I got a galley of Ta-Nehisi Coates' new book, and I'm in the opening pages. But he talks about like an early experience reading. It's like an article, ESPN article actually, was like his like, and he's just, and I can't remember the athlete, but he was like, I got to the point where he says, and the person's name was Singleton. I'm sorry if that's like the most famous athlete. You're like, how do you know? Sorry. I am gay and I'm hot. Like, you'll be okay. Calm down.
Okay.
But he's like, I got to the point in reading where I felt like I was no longer reading about Singleton. I felt that I was Singleton.
That's the thing. Like
and that's what you're trying to do.
When you can enact or embody something.
Because it's like, and
language.
I think that's even better than, you know, often people say, I felt like I was there.
Yeah.
That's like a part of it, but you can.
No, I felt like I was you.
Yeah, yeah, I felt like I was you. I love, and also the thing with structure that I'm realizing, it's like, so the class I'm teaching this in addition to like the research that I'm doing on my own, I'm teaching a class on memoir. It's a workshop, and we often teach workshops, but they want it, because I'm in the medical school, so their idea is like, how are you using your, it's so neat. How are you using, the program's called Media, Medicine, and Health, if you want to look it up. And so it's like using storytelling to like healthcare. You know, like just a quick example, a doctor once was talking, his office hours with me, he wants to do a podcast about what he calls the trauma of return. So when you were a kid, your mom, my mom, had a horrible medical experience, was disrespected at the hospital or disrespected by a therapist or whatever. And then now 10 years later, you don't even think about it anymore, but you've got, something's wrong with your leg. You've got a cough. Something, your neck, you know, and it's an ongoing problem, and you know you need to go get help, but you don't go, right? That's the trauma of return. So I was like, you could do a podcast where you talk to patients and then talk to doctors, right? Isn't that incredible, using storytelling to do it? And so it's like thinking about how the need informs the structures. Yes. I was like, you don't need to just be talking to experts, because the entire problem is experts make all of us feel incompetent. You know, so you need to find a structure that allows us to feel safe. How is the library going to be designed so people feel comfortable walking? And I know, you know, like there are libraries in some cities you're like, ooh, Jesus. And then sometimes you're like, oh, you know what I mean? And that's about how structure, you know, enacts the mission. Form follows function. That's where we get in biology.
Exactly.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about perfection. And the politics of it, like, because I mean, one that is
mortifying,
so funny.
Yeah.
But what I wrote down on my little notes, thank you for being like the index cards. I was like, who does perfection serve? And particularly, I was struck because you're a kid. You're 4 years old. And as you mentioned, connection. We don't, like, as I say to my students, people don't just happen. So, who defines and enforces gender or race or perfection.
Yeah.
So like I wanted to ask your thoughts on that, and in particular in your writing process, when did you have a moment where you were like, perfectionist, kicking my ass? Like I can't, you know, like you're like, suddenly I realize how those other kids must have felt that day. Were you 6 or were you 16 or, you know?
36.
To be clear, one of the reasons we're friends
46?
is I was like that in graduate school, which I think is even worse.
Yeah.
My thesis advisor had to take me aside and was like, you're being too intense.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I'd be like, we went over this same bit of feedback last week in your poem, and I'm just a little confused as to why
you're not really absorbing, and
he was like, first of all, you haven't published a book. So, second of all, I'm the yeah, it was, yeah. Rigoberto Gonzalez, he had to read me down.
Oh my God, I love
Rigo had to read me down.
Rigo's like, we're not gonna ask people to metabolize their feedback more quickly to be on your clock.
No, that's not what he said. He said, Saeed, sometimes it's okay to shut up.
I honestly have no idea at what point it occurred to me that that was not serving me at all. I think, but we know it feels bad in the body to try with fear.
Yeah, yeah.
So like trying out of fear, that's perfectionistic trying, right? That kind of striving out of
Punitive
fear.
creativity.
Yeah, trying out of fear feels bad, but trying out of joy or like just being willing to lower the stakes a little bit for yourself and realize that like, I mean, sometimes I think as a writer, I'm like, I am not an ER doctor.
No thanks.
Nothing I do today, no decision I make, no sentence I edit, no word I share with a student, nothing I grade, nothing I say on a podcast or in front of a group of people. No one lives or dies by any of this.
I'm always like, Saeed, no one is holding a gun to your head saying like, write this poem today.
It's fine.
Chill.
Like,
this is not scandal.
Please, y'all,
You're
let's
not Kerry Washington.
There's more demand than supply.
Yeah, there's more.
No, there's more supply than demand. So
Either way.
We're fine, right?
Yeah.
But I think just that feeling of knowing how it feels in your body and trying out of fear feels bad, trying out of joy, and like, let's just see what happens. Like you were when you were, I mean, I say kids try out of joy, but like I was a 4-year-old who was
rigorous.
Clearly coloring in the lines, but it's that's joyless. That's like rote, right? Like we're supposed to do it this way. And I don't think that I would not be writing book 10 if I were trying out of fear.
Yeah, as someone writing book 4.
Because I would have stopped enjoying it a long time ago. The only reason I'm still doing this, y'all, is because it's fun.
Yeah. I also think, you know, it's interesting because I think of like when people like classically beautiful, these words and ideas, obviously very Eurocentric. So I think like the canon, you know, the great white, I would say like the great white American novel, like is obvious, like people assume it's a novel by a straight white man.
Yeah.
It's not Zora Neale Hurston, you know.
It's not Toni Morrison.
Yeah, it's F. Scott Fitzgerald, it's Norman Mailer. I think perfection, because I can't help but think about perfection in the body, and I think of perfection and starvation. It's almost like disordered eating. It's almost like disordered art, right? The rigor, you're not doing it right. It's like calorie counting. You know what I mean? Like it's like, you know, I love rigor. I talk about this book is the most, like I know this, and I want to talk about the fun of writing difficult stuff too, but it's been the most joyful writing process I've ever had, but it's joyfully rigorous. And I just feel like perfection also has this systemic people-pleasing element.
Oh, for sure.
Perfectionism, you're writing up, trying to please, people are like, what's it like on Twitter? Pick me. You're like begging, you know, you're begging the powers that be. You're sucking up. You're sucking up. Please like me. And you do really nasty, mean things, quite frankly, often. And that's true in terms of craft and in terms of ideas. I will say it. Hillbilly Elegy is and I've talked to my students about it because our class is like how the memoir functions within systems of power.
Right.
So that's actually a perfect example. It's a very effective memoir in terms of what his goals were. He betrayed his family. He betrayed the people of Appalachia. which I'm amazed frankly, that he's able to show his face. Because my friend Marcus is from Appalachia, and I've known some Appalachia bitches in my time. Y'all don't play. So I'm like, keep it cute, JD. But anyway, he used his very effective storytelling for a purpose. He sold his people out, basically. That's what he did. And look at where it leads to. You know what I mean? Wow, yikes. It's a success story, but it's a violent success story.
Yeah.
It was perfect. Perfect as a knife. But then I feel like when I think of you can make this place beautiful, which I just think is like, maybe not perfect, but it's exquisite. You're writing down. You're not, you're like, let's talk. They're watching us. They're surveilling us. They're hunting us. Let's have a moment. That's what I think your exquisite writing does. And I think your structure, you're bowing to us.
You're a dear.
Yeah, you're a dear.
So you brought up joy, and I think we're to the point where we have to wrap, and I want to end with...
Oh, yeah. Fuck, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You gonna set up?
Do you want to start?
I'll set up. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'll start. Our dear friend Ruth Awad is here. Ruth, where's Ruth? Ruth. Ruth is our dear friend, one of our beloved neighbors, one of the people who made me so grateful to be living here.
She's on the group text.
On the group text. And she had this beautiful book of poems just come out. The title is Outside the Joy by Ruth Awad. And so we thought before we get to your questions, we're going to take turns reading the first poem in her book. I go first?
You go first.
I said it and then forgot what.
Yeah.
Okay. Reasons to Live by Ruth Awad. Because if you can survive the violet night, you can survive the next. And the fig tree will ache with sweetness for you and sunlight that arrives first at your window, quietly pawing in even when you can't stand it. And you'll heavy the whining floorboards of the house you filled with animals as hurt and lost as you. And the bearded irises will form fully in their roots, their golden manes swaying with the want of spring. Live, 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 live.
One day, you'll put your hands in the earth and understand an afterlife isn't promised, but the spray of scorpion grass keeps growing, and the dogs will sing their whole bodies in praise of you, and the red buds will lay down their pink crowns, and the rivers will set their stones and ribbons at your door if only you'll let the world soften you with its touching.
We love you.
We love you.
Voice crack number 6. Okay,
Oh my gosh.
It's fine. It's fine.
So we have time for a few questions.
Okay.
We'll keep it a little bit short because we do want to get to the signing as well.
Okay.
But if
And,
anyone has a burning question, please raise your hand so we can.
And
bring
you
the
can
mic
always
over.
ask us
Ask
at
us in the signing line.
Yeah. We're long talkers.
Maggie, I listened to your book, the audio version of You Can Make This Place Beautiful, and even though I know you, I forgot I was listening to you. I thought I was listening to a professional reader. Do you have any plans, or have you been approached to do more audiobooks?
Wow.
Because you have the most perfect voice.
You do.
That's so kind. I feel like I sound like a 12-year-old boy.
What? What
Like
12-year-old boys do you? Okay. No, that's not what you sound like.
Okay, thank you. That's so nice. It always, I have to record my own next audiobook, so I'm already feeling a lot of nervousness about that. No one else has approached me. Although I am going to be guest hosting the Slow Down show.
Oh, that's a great
the poetry podcast.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see.
You're quite good at it.
I'll be a 12-year-old boy on a poetry podcast.
I think there's like this one. There's a Toni Morrison has this description. I can't remember which novel it's in, but she describes something being as peaceful as the curve of an egg. And I feel I just, like your voice has like, I don't understand like the technical, but there's a roundness,
That's so nice. Yeah, I think it's like mom voice.
Mom voice. Hey, we love mom voice.
Please, except for like the get your shoes on, like not that mom.
Yeah.
Get your shoes on.
Yeah.
I've asked you 5 times.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mother tongue.
Mother tongue. That's right.
I don't have a question so much as to get you to come back. I work at Chapman's, so just remember their food.
Oh, yes. I love Chapman's. When I went there with Isaac. Thank you.
Yes.
So it's just a Columbus plug.
That place feels like home. It does. You really do. It's the best food and cocktails, but it's so welcoming. Yeah.
I have plants in
Maggie,
this.
that was for you.
You
Right,
got
Maggie, that was for
secret agents. It's you and the Australians. I swear to God, y'all be working hard. Okay.
But when you started to talk about turkeys, the first thing that I thought of was, I think that Ben Franklin wanted that to be our national bird. And then you said ridiculous and terrifying, and I thought, it should be our national bird. It's the United States. We are ridiculous and terrifying.
I, of course, I've been thinking about this a lot. I need to double check, but what I have heard is that that's actually a bit of a, well, he said it. But he was really catty. This is one of the things, like these people were incredibly, like they were just as vivid and some people were always mopey and some people were always sarcastic. Benjamin Franklin was pretty catty, I would say. And so they were working on a design, right, of like an illustrated design of the eagle, and he didn't like it. And so he said the turkey should be like out of irritation. He was just like, this is stupid. Like, which to me kind of makes it even better. Yeah, it's terrifying. And also, like, listen, so wild turkeys were reintroduced by like the forestry thing because they were in New York and they're everywhere. That article I mentioned with the city council, it was 7 years ago. And it's so bad. Yesterday, a friend said, be careful. And I was like, I know about the turkeys. He was like, they attack cars because they don't like seeing their reflections. He was like, they attack people near their cars. They attack people in their cars. And I was like, wait, in their cars? And my one other thing is, I didn't know those bastards can fly. Did you know that? It doesn't make sense. But they love to sleep, like all around Cambridge and certainly on Harvard's campus, they love the oak trees. And so they'll be.
Can you imagine one descending upon you like a fearsome angel?
Isaac encountered and they're like out in Long Island where he lives now, and he was like, there was a tree with like trees with hundreds of turkeys, and they'd all fly because his dog scared them. Hundreds. The dog was like, this is the best day of my life, and it's just all these turkeys are flying. And he said, Saeed, all the trees were like weighing down. But so it's. The fact that there's a twist on this story, to me, makes it perfect. They are exactly the mascot this country deserves. Yeah, I can't wait for Thanksgiving. I'll be like, give me another piece.
I don't think we can top that. Do we go out on the turkey?
Can we go out on the turkey? Do you want to do one more question?
Actually,
we can go out on the turkey.
does anyone else have any other questions? Because we could go out on a turkey. We have just a couple more.
Worth it. You'll close us out.
Now I feel bad because everyone wants to close on the turkey.
Okay, can we do 2 more questions? Is that okay? Okay, we'll be fast. We'll be super fast.
Okay, so I had a question about, you referred to earlier, Saeed, talking about the joy of writing difficult things.
Yes.
Can you guys talk about that a little bit?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. And then one more person. There ain't that many black people in the room. You know, we got to honor our people of color. You know, I got you, girl. You see me, I see you. Okay. It made me so happy. Like, discard of the tortured writer. These myths. So one, I think that idea exists because a lot of artists feel their work isn't valued, and it isn't. Like a lot of poets, people are like, well, I write poems if I had more free time, and you're like, you're a mother of 2 kids, you're doing many, it's craft. So I think one way people try to take it on is performing that, oh, it's the soul, and it cost me everything, and it's like, and I just don't think it's effective, but I think they're trying to essentially reify value. Because capitalism does everything it can to take away. And you're trying to say, my soul is in there, please appreciate it.
Yeah, but it's not worth more if it hurts.
It can't. And that's the problem.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable. You can maybe write maybe one poem or maybe one book, but I'm here to tell you, you don't get to 10 books. You know what I mean? You don't become this kind of generous person who's still, she's on fire more so than ever, right? And it's because she's thought of a sustainable practice. It's kind of like if you want to be a good runner, you need to have a good pair of shoes. And so I think learning to find the joy and the rigor, it's problem solving for me. And that's a hoot, and it was so weird when I realized where this essay was going, because I was kind of, it flowed. It really, it's like the flaneur. I just went for a walk and saw what come to mind. When I realized I was going to have to write about this torture, and I read a book. I read a whole book for that paragraph, because I was like, I need to know these people's names. It was really hurting me that I didn't. It was not joyful or pleasurable, but I think it allowed me to contain my anxiety, because I was like, what's the most elegant way I can convey in one sentence the only reason this woman survived maybe is because she said, if you kill me, you're going to have to kill my unborn child too. And I just kind of focused on the craft of that, so my mind could go there.
Yeah.
So that's not fun, but it was fun to find out I can honor my ancestors. I will not be cowed by this, and that feels cool,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's satisfying to take something amorphous, like a difficult experience or feeling, and find a form and remove it from your body, first of all, put it someplace else, and find a way to sort of package it isn't the right word, but just give it a shape and have it have a life of its own. There is something incredibly empowering about that, and therefore pleasurable, I think.
Michael Cunningham, I got to go to the salon it was like,
I love Michael Cunningham.
Really
I got
nice.
to have dinner with him in St. Louis this year.
He's a great
super nice guy.
So nice.
Yeah.
And this was 20 years ago, and he was talking about writing The Hours, which is such a beautiful book.
Yeah.
And he said, it's like a burning cathedral in your mind. And it's not meant to stay there. You need to get it out. And it's hard, and it won't be the same. It won't. But I do think it is writing isn't therapy for us.
No.
But it is satisfying and empowering. And we now lucky enough to have some sense of, we can intuit what the work will do for other people. And that's
and
so
that's
where
satisfying.
the joy comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, there's
Okay, we'll be
one
really
last one.
fast.
We'll be
One
so
last
fast.
The pressure, okay.
No pressure. First part of my question is, since you've been at Harvard and in Cambridge, and I lived there as well, and it was a tough city to live in.
It's interesting, yeah.
It's interesting. Wondering if you found, because I also enjoy research, in the archives, anything that might be novel or interesting or shocking even. That's part one. And part two is, Saeed, you are always welcome in Columbus.
Thank you.
I am Brandon's mom, Lisa. And this is my mom. And you can come home for dinner.
You look familiar. Oh my God.
You can come home for dinner anytime.
Oh my God. Okay, I will come hug you very soon.
I'm one of his best friend's mom, his podcast producer's mom. We're happy to have you here. Thank you.
We send each other voice memos all night talking about the legacy of slavery now. Your son is so brilliant. Oh my God. Proud son of Columbus. Wow. Okay.
Oh, I love that.
Okay.
We were just talking about.
Yeah. Okay. So
At dinner.
they know.
Yeah.
I like rocks. I think a lot of gay boys grew up liking rocks. That's my theory. It's like a thing. We collected rocks when we were obsessed with Greek mythology. And so I had a lot of free time because I've started waking up earlier. And I went to, Harvard has its own natural history museum. The scale of it's just like, wow. So I was like, I literally walked around, I was like, rocks. Old lady saw me and she was like, rocks. So I was looking at the rocks, and then I told Maggie, I was like, my ancestors sent me here. Because I was like, it was an hour.
Which is a rude thing to say when I'm trying to get you to come home, because you know I can't say anything.
I can't argue against your ancestors. I was like, I know. But anyway, I ended up wandering. The natural history is connected to the Peabody Museum at Harvard. I did not know. Anthropology is I think it's in a transformative moment, but the origins of the discipline of anthropology are eugenics. Anthropology essentially was founded on the person, like, how do we prove using eugenics, like the physics of a person's body, physiology, that white people are the superior race, directly against black people? And I walked in, and it's like, I can't remember his name, the father of anthropology. There was an archaeologist at Harvard University, and he said, you know what we need? Anthropology as a discipline. So that's part, when I say like the bank, and I'm grateful. This work is difficult. I was shook to learn about the 1712 thing, but I hope in writing about it, like, we're developing connection. So yeah, that's important. And then, wow, okay, we'll go to dinner.
We'll have dinner.
We'll go to dinner.
Thank you all so much.
Thanks.
Yes, let's
Wow.
check one.
Oh my God. They'll be like, it is now, what time is it? Okay.
10:30.
They're like, it's 11:30 p.m.
What a fabulous way to wrap up our 100th anniversary celebration. Let's hear it again for Saeed Jones and Maggie Smith.
Thank you. I was looking for my purse.